So, hey, we're back. It is Thriving Thursday. So, super excited about being here again with my brother, Jamie Adams. I know I probably didn't say his last name the first time, but we're here again with Jamie Adams talking about brotherhood. It was a really great conversation the last time that we had. I am so excited. We talked about vulnerability. We talked about loving people. We talked about having deeper friendships, deeper accountability. We talked about a lot. And I'm so excited to be able to jump back into this conversation. So, hey, Jamie, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you? It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. So let's just jump back in. When we were last together, we talked about the wars that had taken place, and we had touched a little bit about on that, and talked about a little bit about the family structure and war and things of that nature. Let's hop back in there. You had mentioned that being in a war zone really caused men to kind of distance themselves from, I guess, their families and other people, because they weren't really sure who was going to be alive next. Can you hop back into that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in a military environment like that, there's no loving tenderness, right? There's no, the closest you may get to any kind of tenderness is maybe in a hospital, but you had to have gotten yourself there somehow. And it probably wasn't in a really good situation. Otherwise, all you really got from above you was do, be, kill, whatever your specific job. I said I was in the military. I said I'm a veteran, which I am, but I wasn't in the kill people side of the military. I was actually in the fix people side of the military. I was a military nurse. So a little bit different situation for me, but I'm familiar with the entire environment. So that situation of do, kill, drive doesn't allow for a whole lot of A, interpersonal relationships, and B, time for you to sit back and reflect on your feelings.
Yeah.
It just doesn't allow for it. And it's done intentionally, of course. I mean, that's, over the course of centuries, we've become very good at war. We've become good at identifying the things that need to be eliminated or added to make you efficient at what it is they want you to do. But what we're not good at all is what to do when it's over.
Yeah.
And that's where you started alluding into with fathers coming home, sons coming home, brothers coming home, and now mothers, sisters, but we're dealing with men coming home and not knowing how to turn yourself back on.
Yeah.
For me, that was a big thing. Okay. I was involved in trauma, burn trauma, and cardiothoracic trauma was my specialty. 18 years old.
Wow.
So I learned how to shut myself off, to be able to look at a body, to be able to do what I had to do and get it going. What they never taught me was how to turn myself back on afterwards. So I came home when my tour was done. I came home when I was done being in the military, and I dealt with all of my relationships the same way I had dealt with the last several years of get it in, move it on, get it in, move it on. And there was no mesh. It was always this and this. It was never any of this. So yeah, totally. Absolutely. I think that insight that you have into that it's been terrific. I've been thinking about it since we talked about it. And that insight is terrific, because I never put that together until you mentioned it. So thank you for that.
I've had this conversation with several different people, and I'm not really sure. I don't know. I'm a political science major, business major, things of that nature, but I really do feel like relationships are extremely important, and community is really important. So I have somewhat of a social science background, so I kind of think along those lines. But I feel like it's absolutely necessary for us to know the historical peace sometimes when we're dealing with issues, because if you don't know the root cause of what's going on, then you can't move forward from it because you'll repeat the history that
Sure.
you had before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what do you think? Because I know, I mean, you've had military experience. What do you think happened to the men that, not the men that went over? So, say, my dad was in the military. I was in, or not necessarily my dad, but your dad's in the military. You're in the military. What happens to the sons, and what happens to the men that aren't in the military, and they still have this perspective of not opening up and not engaging? Where does that fit in? How does that?
Wow. Hey, that's a pretty broad question. It's I was in the military because my father was in the military and my grandfather was in the military. So you can see that trickle down. The other side of my family, let's just call it 25 males, members of the family, 20 of them have been in the military. So that, yeah, and that's not an exaggeration. So you can see how that pattern plays out.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's easy for me. It also works in law enforcement because I have a lot of family who's also law enforcement. So the same thing happens in law enforcement. It's easy for me to be able to continue a pattern of behavior if I mimic the pattern that was done before me.
Mm-hmm.
A. B, in the search to be relate to my father, my grandfather, my older brother, I'll try and do the things that they did so we have now something in common, which takes us back to our first conversation where I said the guy across the street drives a Mustang, we're both into hunting, we both love the NFL, that commonality, that thing that's going to bring us together, we'll find that in the family generationally with law enforcement or military service, because it created that hard thing, but it's how I'm going to relate to the other men in my family.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a yearning, it's a searching, it's a digging to find something, to find a relationship, and we find it the wrong way, but we find it in that. So yeah, very valid.
Wow. This is mind blowing. Like, it really is. I mean, no joke. I've seen it kind of on the flip side. I come from a different community. I grew up in Kentucky, in the west end of Kentucky, and I saw this kind of perpetuated in the community that I was in. Just one perspective. Um, you did see law enforcement go into law enforcement, or you did see attorneys become attorneys, or
Yeah.
factory workers become factory workers. And then you saw people that were criminals would go into crime. And I knew some people that would go into crime to meet their parents in
Yeah.
prison.
Yeah.
Because that has become kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, and not just in that particular community, but just throughout.
Sure.
That's unfortunate. I'm trying to figure out a way to ask this, but why is it that I don't understand the superficiality. I don't get how you cannot be okay and not share that with
Yeah.
other men. I mean, who do you tell? Do you tell your wife? Like, what do you?
No, most of us won't even tell our wives. Most of us won't even tell our wives. There's things my wife has found out about me in 18 years of marriage that she didn't know before, only because, I liken men to everlasting gobstoppers.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can suck on that thing. You can have that thing in boiling water. And all you're going to do is layer after layer after layer after layer. And there's nothing there. There's no substance. There's nothing in the middle. There's nothing. Like, it's just what is happening. It's getting I liken men to that.
Yeah.
Because I can add layers and layers and layers and layers. And I can keep telling you these things that seem like these great revelations, but it's probably something incredibly stupid that I think is important, right? Like I let my wife in on immediately on the important things in my life. Okay. Obviously I don't have a mom and dad. You're going to figure that out pretty quick. So let me just get that one out. And, oh, look, I made myself vulnerable because I told you my mommy and daddy aren't here anymore. And that lasted for a while. Hey, great, woohoo. And then all of a sudden you start having the conversation with your wife of, you never talk to me.
Yeah.
Why don't you ever talk to me? You never tell me anything. Oh, I don't want to bring my work home, or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that, where it's just easy for me to dismiss it. And that's the superficiality, my word. That keeps it that way. So I don't have to. But when you really start getting down into it, and we really start sitting down, husband and wife, spouses, sharing those intimate things, you realize, wait a second, I just spent 15 years keeping you here. As soon as I let you in, our relationship just improved 10,000%. The nagging you used to do to me all the time is gone now, because I don't feel like you're nagging me, because you really have this deep compassion for what's going on in my life. You have to have a revelation of the fact that you got to let that stuff go.
Yeah.
And that's where men screw it up with each other too.
Yeah.
That's where we screw it up with each other. I can hang out with my buddy and watch football every Sunday for 10 years. And the one time he leans back in the chair and looks at me and goes, bro, I'm really broken, man. Let's have her talk about that. But instead of, most guys will go, whatever, dude, and move on. Keep it superficial so you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to get involved, and you don't have to be accountable. I know. It's not a great answer. I know, but
like I said, for me, it's just like, I don't understand that. It seems like it would be, like you're saying, the freedom that's there.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I mean, how do you, if you are so superficial, not you personally.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
If male friendships are so superficial, is it common for men not to have a lot of friendships? Is it common for them to just stay at home and kind of focus on what, like work and, you know, whatever else they've got going on, and then just kind of exist after that?
Yeah, sure. Ask any guy if he's going to be really honest with you. He'll tell you he's got a very small circle. Very small circle. And a lot of it is because of the way we handle our relationships like that. Yeah, most of us will engross ourselves in our jobs. I, myself, guilty. For years, my wife would tell you, years of just being a workaholic, because it was easier for me to go to work and earn than it was to deal with the things that I had to deal with. Yeah. So yeah, that's a huge part of it. Again, a lot of it is maybe I don't want to deal with work and you don't want to deal with work. So let's be Giants fans or Yankees fans together.
Yeah.
And that's all we can deal with that. Don't talk about work, dude. It's the worst. I don't want to talk about work. Don't talk about my wife. Don't talk about my kids. Praise God. I love my wife and my kids, and I'll talk about my wife and my kids all day. But if we're talking about the general condition of men, you know, oh, God, my mother-in-law, bro, I can't even deal with her. We don't want to deal with that stuff. So let's just hang out, watch the Yankees. Let's just talk about our jobs. Bro, you're in construction? Cool, I'm in construction. How'd you build this wall? Oh, I use 2x4. It's so much easier to deal with each other that way.
Yeah.
Small circle. And you got to, and most men are very, very selective about the guys that are in their circle. You'll see movies about it. They make jokes about it in movies where I've been friends with 2 or 3 guys for a couple of years, and I'll bring another guy in, and all the other guys will bristle up like, whoa, who's this dude? That's how, so yeah. Small circle, keep it tight. It avoids the infiltrator who might want to come in and start sharing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. If a guy does come in and start sharing, Like, what do you do? Do you cut them off? Do you just say, well, you know, I don't do that? Like, how do you handle it? How is that handled?
A lot of guys are very quick to get marginalized that way. Me personally, now that I have my relationship with God and I've been walking with him for a while and he's shown me how to love, different story, right? I'm the one that's going to walk over and hug you and bring you in and go, come on, let's go talk about this. Let's go have some lunch. 95% of the time, you're going to get, well, you've been hanging out with your wife too long, you know, or
Oh, wow.
no, yeah. Again, I'm going to probably get another corner cut off my man card, but it's it's you get marginalized very quickly, and that's how you don't get invited back to stuff.
Okay.
Right? You're not.
Okay.
Just set this picture in your head. Beautiful June afternoon, 5 guys standing around a grill, holding burgers, holding a soda. And somebody goes and turns around and goes, you know, I'm having a really hard time with XYZ. And the other 4 dudes looking at them with their burgers like, now guess who's not coming to the next barbecue?
Yeah.
So what is it? Is it easier to have a relationship on a superficial level where you feel like your life is full because people are there? Or do you actually want to earn a friendship? I think for a majority of people, it's easier to just feel like you have a full circle.
So how is it when you're, like you told me, you said, man, well, I'm good my way through life. How is it when you're dealing with a crisis and you look around and there is superficiality? Like, where do you run to? Do you just internalize, or do you just go into yourself? Like, how does that even work?
Yeah. Wow. That's a great question. Most will internalize. And let's look at rates of alcoholism, suicide rates, spousal abuse. Where does all that come from? You need an outlet. If you don't have an outlet, if you don't have a constructive way to deal with the issues of life or the things that come up, and you start turning to a pill, a bottle, any of the vices, any of the things that we just mentioned, it's so quick for those things to grab and get hooks into you and hook into your life because you have nowhere to go. I know for me, it came in the form of a guy named John. When we first got saved, he knew, he could tell. He came from where I came from. He knew that I had my walls. He knew that I had, and he never gave up on me.
Mm.
And it came in the form of John. And John taught me how to be vulnerable without looking like an idiot, how to be able to open up and not feel like you look like an idiot, how to be able to. And I spend my time now sharing that same thing with other guys, because I honestly believe if this guy, John, had not poured those things into my life, I don't know where I would be today.
Yeah.
I was a drinker.
Yeah.
I was a heavy drinker.
Yeah, I remember you sharing that.
Right. And I don't drink anymore, praise God. But you could see where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
You could see where that developed. I had a temper.
Yeah.
Right. And I noticed, even just for myself, that being able to open up and share and talk to other people, those things started going away, because that pent up frustration, that pent up sadness, depression, whatever it was inside of me, was able to come out and finally be able to share with somebody.
So for those of you that don't know how to, okay, you're looking at us having this conversation about vulnerability, and you're like, well, the Bible tells us in the book of James was a man's man. He said, confess your faults one to another, pray for one another that you may be healed.
Yeah.
This is what we're talking about. Scriptural, biblical perspective. There is truth in confessing what's happening. There's truth in opening up. Now, I'm saying it from a female perspective. Jamie's saying it from a male perspective.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is truth to that. And I was somebody that I was very, very closed. And I've talked about it before. You know, even with Marcus. Marcus was probably way more open than I was when we first got married.
Yeah.
And he was all lovey-dovey, and I was like, bro, slow
Yeah.
down. I know
Guilty as
we're
charged.
married,
Yeah.
but you're gonna have to slow down on that a little bit.
Yeah, guilty as charged. I mean, totally. And James, that's such a great example. You know, um, gosh, I'm so glad that you brought that up because just once will change your life.
Yeah.
Just once. And if I could get one message to men,
Yeah.
that would be it. Once. And watch what happens because it will change your life. Literally change your life. But you have to have the internal fortitude to, and you said it in our last discussion, the paradigm has to shift.
Yeah.
Plant the flag, be the one to break it, be the one to say enough is enough, this stops here, be the one to say I don't need to do this by myself, I shouldn't have to suffer like this by myself, God put these other men in my life, let's do this together.
Yeah.
Right? A 3-stranded cord is unbreakable.
Mm-hmm.
One can be broken, but a 3-stranded cord, bring those people in. And not for nothing, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, so shall I be in their presence.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It doesn't say when you're sitting by yourself in your house lamenting why you can't talk to somebody that God's going to be standing over your shoulder. He will.
Yeah.
But he encourages fellowship. He encourages honesty and openness with each other. And he encourages gathering.
Yeah.
Gathering for a purpose. So yeah.
Yeah. It's essential. There's so many questions I want to ask you right now. We have 9 minutes.
Uh-oh.
I've got like 25 questions in my mind, but I've got to be selective. And maybe we can jump into a lot of this when we get on with all 4 of us in the next week or so. You said it just takes one time.
Yeah.
Somebody that's new to this, that's new to wanting to open up, or kind of is on the ledge, and like, okay, so what do I do? Can you give just like a few ways for, number one, who do you look for? What do you look for? How do you know? And then how do you, like you said, be vulnerable without being stupid in about 5 or 6 minutes?
Okay. That's a lot to cover in 5 minutes.
No.
No. What you really have
Thursday, you can talk fast.
what you have to do is find the one person that you know you can trust. And trust them with something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? For me, it was this guy, John. He was there. He was in my face. He knew that I needed help. There's people in your life that know that you need help. Yeah. The one guy that keeps coming to you going, bro, you okay? Is not just an annoying pain. He really cares about you. The one guy that wants to have a conversation with you every time he sees you is not there just because he feels like he needs to have a conversation with you to fulfill his life. He knows that you need something. So my first advice would be that guy, and you know who it is. You know darn good and well who it is.
Yeah.
Talk to him.
Yeah.
And start, and if you just want to get your foot wet because you don't really know, start with something silly. I remember going to this guy, John, the very first time that I ever opened up to him and saying, I was holding a beer in my hand, talking to this guy. And I said, John, I really think I want to stop doing this. And we had a conversation about it. And he followed up with me the next week, like, hey, how'd you make out with that conversation we had last week? And he made me so comfortable, and the trust built so quickly that I was able to come back to him a couple of weeks later with something else, and then something else, and then something else. So you know who it is. I'm looking right at you.
Yeah.
You know who it is. And you think he's a pain, or you think he's nosy, but I'm telling you, he's there for you. Have a conversation with him, and that's how it starts.
Wow. That's good, man.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So how do you do it without feeling stupid?
Pull them off on the side. Listen, everybody's got one of these, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got one of these. I don't care who you are. Everybody's got one of these. Hey, bro, can I talk to you for 5 seconds? Send. Right? Let them respond. And then meet for a coffee somewhere. Talk on the phone. Have him come to the house. Go to his house. Whatever it is, you don't have to be in an environment where there's 557,000 people. You got one of these. Look, you and I are in completely different states and different time zones in this country. And here we are looking face to face with each other, having a conversation. Sometimes maybe that's what it takes.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be in an environment after church on Sunday when there's 3,000 other people trying to leave the lobby.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you want to not look stupid?
Yeah.
That's how you do it. Then watch what happens, because within a couple months, you're going to be running across the lobby with the other 3,000 people going, dude, you got to talk to this guy. Come here.
Yeah.
And you'll see how quick that transformation is going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, just your perspective on brotherhood? I believe that I believe this conversation is really going to help some people.
Sure.
We've talked about that. What do you think is going to happen? Like, because I know we wouldn't be talking about this. Both of us wouldn't have this in our hearts. And I know I'm a woman. I love guys, not in the derogatory sense. I've got 3 boys, a husband. Guys are like, this is my big brother right here. Like guys are super cool. And so I don't think that we would both have this in our hearts if something amazing, I believe is going to take place. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think, what do you see is our future kind of as brothers in brotherhood?
If we're looking at the current situations in our country right now, whether they be kind of the racial divides that are happening right now, the political divides that are happening right now, the faith divides that are happening right now, those things are all going to have to come back together at some point.
Yeah.
Men are the backbone of a lot of these things. And if I can't have an open dialogue with someone of a different race, someone of a different religious system, someone of a different political leaning, then we're lost. And that's what we're seeing right now. The I'm offended culture before we even have a conversation, because it's easy for me to throw that wall up and block you before you even get to me. That's what I see coming. We're going to need to be able to have open, honest conversations and dialogue with each other in order to heal the things that are happening right now. And we can't do that in the current situation we're in without a paradigm shift.
Love it. Oh my gosh. This conversation has been phenomenal. Normally I like to do a recap and talk about it all over again, but there's been so much.
Yeah.
But I will say this. If you are on the verge of wanting to reach out, like Jamie said, I'm going to admonish you to do it. Just go for it. Just jump all in. If you know some guys that you know are isolated, excuse me, that seem to just be kind of off by themselves, share this video with them. I believe that it'll be quite helpful, because it is important that we're able to have honest, open dialogue with each other.
Yeah.
Jamie and I talked about it in the previous live video, and we're talking about it now. Jesus talked about love. He said that this is how people would know that you're my disciples, the ones that follow him. It's by the love that you show each other.
Yep.
And that love looks a lot different than what we're really seeing right now. Like he said, the offended culture, putting the walls up, backing up, not allowing people to come in.
Yeah.
But when we break those walls, we pull those walls down and we allow people to come in. It says, confess your faults to one another. Pray for one another that you may be healed.
Amen.
We see healing.
Amen.
We see it flow. We sense his love.
Amen.
We come together in truth and honesty.
Amen.
Well,
So cool.
This is Thriving Thursday. Don't forget to, don't just survive. Don't just be superficial in your relationship, but it's time to thrive.
Amen.
Until next time, we'll see you then. Bye.